Ladies and gentlemen, I got a phone call the other day from a scammer. And it told me that my visa has been revoked and that there's a warrant out for my arrest and that I needed to contact agent in charge of my account. And I should press 1 for English and press 2 for Mandarin. Our only saving grace in this day and age is that the scammers are absolute goddamn idiots. If you're somebody who requires to hear something in Mandarin to understand what's being said, you're not going to know what press 2 for Mandarin fucking means. You would want to say it in Mandarin.
You should just press 2 to hear what Mandarin sounded like, you know? I wonder where we're taking you.
I could just, I don't know, call the Liberal Party hotline. I'm sure that they have press 2 for Mandarin as well. Actually, it's probably press 2 for English, and it starts off in Mandarin.
Mashup 127, twos. You know, I wish the listener could have saw us jockeying as we were getting ready for this. We had so much time, and at the end, as we're walking through it, Twos is like trying to tell me a story, and I'm like, why are you trying to tell me a story? Can't we just walk through the schedule today? And you're like, fine. He throws this like little temper tantrum 2 minutes before the show, and I'm like, what the heck is going on right now? I just want to walk.
Just calling you out on your bullshit. That's all.
I am trying to get, so good day, folks. Mashup 127. Twos is going to be on it today. He was giggling to himself before we even got going.
You guys are going to love some of the headlines today.
We'll see. George says hi, guys. A couple others chiming in. Good morning, Murray, and others. Yes, and thanks for hopping in. Twos doing what Twos does best, irritating Sean behind the scenes with trying to mess with his schedule of things trying to go on as we get the show started. So, happy morning, 127 Mashup. Let's walk through some things. Me and Twos were talking about this. Like, I don't know what we were doing the days, right? Of how many days these guys have been in remand. Now it's like, what the heck do we do? Maybe we just do a weekly reminder that there's some guys, sitting in prison now.
For 6.5 years, basically political prisoners.
Yes.
Made examples of with our broken judicial system. And so in case anybody forgot, this is your weekly reminder.
Here's your weekly reminder. Happy Airborne Friday to Jamie Sinclair and the boys. Well, shout out to all the military guys. I just saw Chuck the other day, and I don't know. Jamie usually shoots me a text every second or third day. So shout out to the boys. Isn't that Two's job? It probably is Two's job, Chad. You're right. He's probably talking about him getting me riled up. Yeah, fair enough. Some days it just
and
comes
he says,
up.
Good work, Twos.
Yeah, all right. Yes, we're all going to.
Actually, this one's really interesting, too. Kevin says that kind of lively banter was gold on Patreon. Do you remember when
we used to film it?
Listeners would recall that we would just film, I don't know, the last half hour before we went live on the show, just getting everything ready, getting lined up, telling each other how dumb we are. It was, I don't know. I think it was kind of a fun behind the scenes thing. Maybe we should do something like that every once in a while and throw it on Substack.
Man, we could probably do that. I tell you what, this morning we should have done it because it took everything in my skill set not to call you an idiot and just move on. So here it is.
That's
and
not
it's
really saying much.
We got some important dates coming up here, folks. We're into October. So October 18th, we got BC live election coverage. October 28th, Saskatchewan live election coverage. November 1st and 2nd, we're in Red Deer UCP AGM. We have the hospitality room. We just put it under the name this morning, actually. Mashup with SMP and 222 minutes. So if you're there, that's where you're going to be looking. Twos, forgive me. I keep forgetting this. Where is the hospitality room?
It's right next to all the other hospitality rooms. They're all together.
Thanks, Twos. I mean the facility, you jackass.
It's the Red Deer Resort. I got to
deal with this morning, folks. I'm like,
the Red Dear Resort and Casino, which, by the way,
was that so hard?
Place. Yes, it was. Honestly, it was way easier and more fun to just be a dick about it for 5 seconds at the start.
Sure. We have November 5th, the U.S. election as well. We're going to do live coverage on that. We're going to have a little bit of fun. And so there's lots of things coming up. And finally, the Mashup collection. If you're interested in sporting some things, sporting the rooster, there you go. You can find it. I'll toss it in the comments right now. There you go. So it's in there.
Wow, okay. That was an interesting lead up, but yes, there you go. All right, let's get cracking.
An interesting lead up. Okay.
Well, you're like, I'm going to do this now.
Free speech block gets blocked. A federal judge on Wednesday blocked a California measure restricting the use of digital altered political deepfakes just 2 weeks after Governor Gavin Newsom signed the bill into law. Chris Coles, known as Mr. Reagan on X, sued to prevent the state from enforcing the law after posting an AI-generated video of Harris' campaign ad on the social media site. He claimed the video was protected by the First Amendment because it was parody, and the judge agreed.
I love this quote, though, from the judge. Most of the law acts as a hammer instead of a scalpel. He called it a blunt tool that hinders humorous expression and unconstitutionally stifles the free and unfettered speech of ideas or exchange of ideas. And so, yeah, he just said that basically you guys are doing this. You guys are making it illegal to make fun of you. And that's stupid. That's the kind of thing you'd expect from Canada.
That is, but I mean, California, it kind of resembles parts of Canada, doesn't it? I mean, minus the heat.
Well, I mean, there's parts of California that are further north than parts of Canada.
Natural disaster handling is a natural disaster and in of itself, whensoever it pertains to the ipso facto rectilinear anti-disestablishment humanitarianism. Did I get that right?
Not even close.
What the hell is that? Natural disaster handling is a natural disaster in and of itself, where whatsoever it pertains to the ipso facto rectilinear anti-disestablishment
disestablishmentarianism.
All right, I see. Like he just okay, fine. Welcome to the Mashup 127. If you're
Ron
new to
Burgundy would have got it right.
Two is having some fun today with the teleprompter. Okay. Hundreds likely dead, millions of dollars in damage, entire towns gone, roads gone, power outages with no end in sight, people dying for lack of food and medicine. But Homeland Security's Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, just doesn't have enough money to help. This is, as many point out, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, allocated nearly $364 million in the fiscal year 2023 and $650 million a year for the 2024 fiscal year to the Shelter and Service Program, which provides humanitarian services to non-citizen migrants following their release from the Department of Homeland Security, according to the government's website. So they're saying they have...
And Paul says, basically, Tooze is a dick. I think he's probably correct.
Everybody having fun today. Happy Friday to everybody. Okay, so basically, you know, it kind of resembles Tooze, this story of the hurricane and some of the damage caused to the wildfires, not allowing people in to help and do things.
This sounds like Fort Mac all over again.
Right. So now down in the States, you have people stranded in tough situations, and FEMA saying we don't have enough money to go help.
Well, that's because they spent all their money on illegal aliens. But also, there were a whole bunch of other people who were trying to get in to help. And they're like, oh, you're not one of our preferred vendors. Oh, this isn't the right box to check. You know, yeah, we get that you're bringing in a bunch of food, water, supplies, and everything like that. But we're not making any money off of it, so you can't do it. And so there's all these videos of people flying around in their own helicopters, trying to save people, and like just story after story of people being blocked off from trying to access these areas to help people out.
Yeah, which has become pretty standard in North America, not just for certain parts. This is a story that just keeps coming up, how emergency services won't let people through to help, and then of course this part with FEMA, and the plot thickens, I guess.
Yep. Well, basically, sorry, just real quick. Basically, the moral of the story is that you can't ever count on the government. The government is not there to help you. The government is there to help themselves, and your trust should not be put in the government on any situation.
RCMP sets unofficial threshold for foreign interference. The RCMP declined to investigate a suspected money laundering network connected to the People's Republic of China because the force determined that shutting down the scheme would have no significant impact. Deputy Commissioner Mark Flynn, who is in charge of federal policing, testified that he had made the decision not to pursue an investigation because it wouldn't make much of a difference.
Yes. So now they're deciding, how bad is the murder really? Like, was it a big murder or was it a small murder? I remember one time I needed to take some pressure control equipment out on this project. And so I called up my boss at the time and I was like, hey, man, so the certs on this stuff are all expired. And he said, well, how expired are they? Like if they're only a little bit expired, you can still take them on site? Like, no. And this is the same thing. They're like, well, yeah, it's illegal, but it's not like super illegal. We have speeding tickets to get to. Don't buzz me because we haven't even covered the second part of this. See, here's the thing: is you buzz me, it's just the premature buzzulation. Okay, so the second thing is that it came out that Bill Blair has lied in parliamentary testimony twice now, and the second time was it turned out that he had a warrant for surveillance for Michael Chan's chief of staff, Zita Astrovis. He said that he got it again quickly. Zita Astrovis.
All right.
Yes, Zita anti-disestablishmentarianism. So
thank you.
Yeah, and the Global article says that he had it on his desk for more than a month, which is interesting. So if you say here, sat with the chief of staff was Zita Astrovis, and it was directly for Michael Chan, pardon me. And it sat with them for more than a month before being signed off. Do you know how long it was? It was 59 days. Would it not make more sense to say 2 months? I mean, depending on the months, that's literally 2 months. But Global always got to understate whatever the liberals do wrong. I mean, I'm surprised they didn't say it sat on his desk for more than a few hours, because technically that's correct. Also, it did sit on his desk for more than a few hours. Anyways, that's Bill Blair getting caught lying for a second time, because that's what he does. And Michelle, by the way, said, I thought he was calling you an eggplant, referring to that.
Get up on your lingo, Michelle. Get up on your lingo.
The eggplant emoji, just for anybody who isn't aware, it means junk, and not just any junk, dude junk. So
I think the word you're looking for is penis. Is that you could just call it what it is too.
All right. Well, I'm trying to keep our
you're trying to keep it
to a minimum.
A minimum. Interesting. Yep. Okay. This is a sheer delight. Quoted the charters there. This is Andrew Scheer. I'm sure Two's going to show the video. You're going to show the video. You want to show the video?
Yes.
You're going to show the video.
Yeah. Basically, this is going to be real quick.
The honorable member from Regina Capel.
The charter is there to protect the people from the government, not to protect the government from accountability by the people.
Yeah, he's absolutely right. And so that is what it is and how it should be. But also, where the hell was that version of Andrew Scheer when he was leader of the Conservatives?
Well, that's what we got talking about earlier. It's like, who is this Andrew Scheer? And why are they like, they're obviously letting him either come out and like be what he is, or they're pushing him up, or like, it's very interesting. Andrew Scheer is getting some airtime.
See, it's funny because you assume that he had this capability deep inside himself all along and was told not to bring it forth. And then this is where you get into, the conspiracy theory side of the Uniparty. Like, I get the fact that they are all the same party, but then you get into the conspiracy theory side of things, which says that the Conservatives were purposely trying to lose for several years in a row until, the time was up, and now it's time for them to take over, and they'll run things, and then they'll start spiking the football, and the Liberals can take over again. Which, I mean, stuff like this makes you wonder. Like, you mean to tell me that the media managers for the Conservative Party are really that bad that they had a guy who could do stuff like this and they told him to shut the hell up when he was leader?
CBC throws a Hail Mary. After months-long review, the CBC Radio Canada's mandate, Heritage Minister Pascal Saint-Onge is expected to announce changes meant to modernize the public broadcaster sometime over the next 4 weeks. You don't say. A senior government official told CBC News the government is in the final stages of drafting what could be major legislative and regulatory changes to better position the company for the future as it grapples with the seismic developments in the news and broadcasting space. You think they just went in and said, we just got to start telling the truth, folks? Like, we actually, we just got to start talking.
What if we quit fucking around? Like, just crazy ideas. Like, there's no wrong answers in spitballing. Okay, who's got an idea? Johnson in the corner. Well, what if we just started telling people what was actually happening? Get out! That's basically how the CBC's been for a while. It talked about how this article, which is from the CBC. This is a CBC article.
Correct.
Talking about the official who spoke on the condition that they not be named because they are not authorized to speak publicly, said a new CEO is expected to be named as the package of CBC reforms is announced. They got one of their own people in CBC to talk to CBC unofficially, despite the fact that they weren't allowed to talk to CBC. This whole thing is an elaborate and very ugly bow they're trying to paint on the whole thing. Like, yeah, we talked to somebody who can't talk to the media because they're not authorized to talk to the media. We went over to his cubicle because he was 10 feet away from us. What a bunch of idiots. It also stated that the mandate was crafted in 1991 and hasn't been updated since. So all of as far as technology's gone in the past 33 years, CBC's mandate supposedly has stayed the same. The interesting thing about CBC, the first version of CBC, which went on for about 7 or 8 years, did this partisan, paid for by the Conservative Party mock of, I think, King going into an election on election night, and then it didn't change the outcome of the election, but they disbanded that and they reformed it, saying it needs to be as apolitical as possible. We can't have paid advertisements for political parties mocking the leaders on our Canadian broadcasting program. We need to have it absolutely apolitical, no slant one way or the other. And so they dissolved the first version of it and formed the new one under that mandate. And then look how far they've fallen. Also, interesting note, you know how it's like, oh, we need to protect Canadian content? The second thing the CBC ever aired was an orchestra in New York. So as important as it is to be Canadian, literally the second thing that ever went on that show was American content.
It's interesting. It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see what the CBC does. I mean, at the end of the day, they have been around since I was a kid. They missed the complete boat when the Freedom Convoy went. They've missed
everything.
They've missed the complete boat on everything since then. And I'm sure for those of you who've been paying attention for a long time, you would say they've missed the complete boat for a lot longer than that. And they still can't figure that out because anytime, as you pointed out, hey, Johnson, what do you got? Get the hell out. I mean, it's been pretty obvious.
I mean, and nobody's even advertising with them anymore. For those of you listening rather than watching, this is from Yukon Strong. Sitting at the diner again. It's been on 3 times in the last 30 minutes. Where it's just a CBC screen and it's got a countdown timer on it and says, we'll be right back, which means that they couldn't sell any advertising spots for that. The CBC is not a serious thing. And then Paul says we prefer the term people date, not mandate. That's fair. We'll try and do better going forward.
Liberal versus liberal. House of Commons Speaker Greg Fergus ruled that the Trudeau government defied the authority of Parliament by refusing to hand over documents pertaining to the Sustainable Development Technology Canada and its gross misconduct.
So this is the dozens of counts of ethics violations that were met with exposure, and the millions of dollars that got funneled away to people's own companies and their pet projects and their friends. This was basically a friends of the Liberals get rich for no fucking return scheme. And they were supposed to hand over all the documents, and they didn't. And now they're not allowed to table anything in Parliament for a week.
I don't even know what to say.
But this is the Speaker of the House that did it.
I know.
Who is a Liberal member of Parliament who sits as the lead. So you've got a Liberal saying this is so bad that we are not going to allow you fucks to do anything. And yes, I know I'm one of these fucks, and that's how bad
this is. Where I wish I had Tom Korski just hop on the call for 3 minutes just to give me like the historical relevance of what's going on. Because I sit here and I watch this and I'm like, I don't know, this bizarre world just keeps getting more bizarre. Now the Liberals are shutting down the Liberals because they won't hand over the things that are going to incriminate the Liberals. And you're like, I don't know. Like, this is just the Titanic ship sinking as fast as it can possibly go. It can't go fast enough. Mm-hmm. And in the meantime, we just watch more and more things happen where you're like, okay, all right. Well,
yeah. So for those of you thinking, oh, well, the Liberals can't be that bad, that's how bad it is.
That's how bad it is. A classic bit of auto theft. Okay, so this is, I'm going to pull up the picture. Okay, here's one of the cars. This is Wayne.
Beauty.
Yes, this is Wayne and Mona Evoy. They have an empty space in their garage and a hole in their hearts. The shiny black 1934 Ford Coupe was more than just a car. This is in Ontario. It was an escape. The car was purchased after years of scrimping and saving for $30,000 in cash in June of 2021. At first, it didn't run well, but Wayne spent endless hours tinkering in the garage. He got it safetied, plated, and insured, and the Ontario government issued ownership slips, sat in a little pocket on the driver's door if anyone cared to ask. The Evoys never had reason to suspect anything was amiss with their dream car until an Ontario provincial police detective arrived at the door this past July, informing them that they were in possession of a stolen property. A few days later, the tow truck took it away. And this is one of now, what is it? I think the article said 200 of these classic cars that were sold and then years later have been
sold.
Yes.
You've got it in your, like, it's really interesting because, yeah, they were fraudulently sold. They were stolen and then sold. And then these people had legitimate certificates of ownership. Like, they had the pink slips for these cars. And then the government shows up one day and says, this got stolen way back in the day, but you have it now, so we're going to take it. And it doesn't say whether it's actually made its way back to the original owners. It doesn't say, it says that they're not being compensated for their costs to buy the vehicle. It doesn't say that they're going to be paid back for the improvements that they made to it. You know, like all that guy's time, effort, and money into getting that thing roadworthy. Does he get any of that back? Probably not. And it's interesting because, like, on the one hand, you've got somebody who had their car stolen and they ought to get it back. And on the other hand, you've got somebody who says, I've had this car for 10 years.
And it's been plated, insured, everything.
Yeah.
And the way I read the article too is, correct me if I'm wrong, this wasn't like some guy shows up at your doorstep is peddling a car and you're like, this seems kind of fishy. Like, this was way more legit.
Didn't buy it out of the trunk of a different car.
I just mean it was way more legit than some Craigslist thing where it's like, oh, $1 and you can have this car. It was way more legit.
The serial numbers aren't put on with an engraver, right? And so it's really interesting because it's this weird black hole where no matter what you decide to do at this point, as a ruling or what laws you want to put forth, someone's going to get screwed. And the only decent answer would probably be to squeeze the guy in the middle on both ends of it.
Yeah. I don't know. The guy who did the
guy who stole it,
put him in jail and make him pay for what he's done. Yeah. That sounds like a reasonable thought.
Yeah.
Argentina, or how I stopped worrying and learned to love the economic statistics. Argentina, its poverty rate has surged to 52.9% under its government's austerity program, and a warning sign for Libertarian President Javier Milei as his popularity begins to falter. The rate published by the National Statistics Agency on Thursday is the worst in 2 decades and 11.2 percentage points higher than in the second half of 2023, when it stood at 41.7%, meaning 3.4 million Argentinians have fallen into poverty this year.
Okay, first off, just off the top of my head, what's the Argentinian population?
Well, let's just look.
Okay, 46.23. And how many did you say fell into poverty?
3.4.
Okay, so less than 10%, despite the fact that they laid off something like 30 or 38% of the population that used to work for the government a year ago. And out of that, 2/3 are okay, and 1/3 still trying to figure their shit out. Here's the problem with statistics is that they suck, because there's just this vested incentive in not doing them correctly. Like, for example, our public servants add absolutely nothing to the GDP. It just moves money from one pocket to another. So why do we count them towards the economy? We shouldn't. And if Argentina didn't count their civil servants towards the economy before this, and then all these people with bullshit do nothing jobs get laid off, then all of a sudden you've got these people who 2/3 of them are now working. If you actually had some honest statistics about it, it would say that things are getting better. Now, here's the thing, is that this also was entirely predictable just because of the way the stats are set up. And so when somebody like Ryan Turnbull or any liberal says, oh, you think Argentina is so great? Look how poor they're doing. It's not that they're doing poor. They're crawling their way out of a very shitty situation. And the ways that the statistics are set up, it's going to reflect something exactly like this. We talked about this a year ago. And this is how it's happening because this is how they measure it, not because it's an accurate reflection of what's going on. And Murray says it happens with music equipment all the time. I don't know what he means by that, so we're just going to give him a sad trombone.
Bad people on bail of the week. The man accused of shooting a Toronto police officer in the abdomen Wednesday night was out on bail at the time. Organo and co-accused were arrested by York Regional Police in May and charged with more than 24 offenses, including possessing a stolen vehicle, stolen license plates, breaking into and entering multiple homes, as well as breaching an earlier probation order. He was released on bail the same day by a justice of the peace at Newmarket Court, as was meant to live with his surety on Redpath Avenue in an apartment building just steps away from where Wednesday's shooting occurred.
Well, at least he was easy to find.
Yeah.
Let him out on bail. So, I mean, he's previously violated
twice.
Yeah. And then they let him out on bail again, and then he shoots a cop. Because of fucking course. Now, this is the nicer side of this news. What's the second article, Sean?
I don't know. What was the second article, Twos? You must have tossed one in on me.
All right. Guelph man accused in fatal hit and run charged weeks later in second crash.
No, I do.
Yep. So he hit this 73-year-old lady or something like that, who was a well-known community advocate. It didn't actually get into what she did in the community, but just this nice little old lady ran her over and killed her. And this, by the way, the driver, a 35-year-old man who has not been named. Now, we covered a couple weeks ago where a woman was facing assault with a weapon charges over a water gun, and she got named.
Yes.
This guy didn't get named. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that he has a very non-traditionally Canadian name, and they don't want to further stereotypes, and that's why he's not being named.
You remember in the middle of COVID when somebody would die and they wouldn't put a vaccination status if right? And then if somebody died and they weren't vaccinated, you damn well knew because they just blow it up. Unvaccinated this.
Yep.
But any other time,
Yep.
anyone it never. This is the same trend in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
It's like,
yeah, absolutely.
Omission of facts is just a glaring, obvious point of that's probably what it is.
So anyway, he hits this woman, drives off, gets found, gets charged, gets let out, and a week or two later or whatever it is, he runs another vehicle off the road, ends up in a rollover with an upside down vehicle, gets out, runs away, and gets some other woman to try and say that she was driving the vehicle, which is slightly understandable because it's upside down in a ditch. You think, okay, well, yeah, fair enough. But there was enough eyewitness accounts who said that no, she wasn't there. It wasn't her. It was this dude. And so, yeah, this is our justice system. How many more times is this going to happen? It literally happened twice.
We rag on the RCMP and cops all the time, but I feel bad for them in this, because you arrest the guy, you put him in, and then the system lets him right back out. That's got to be unbelievably frustrating.
637 cops in Ontario so far this year, I think it was. It might be across Canada, have been injured on the job.
School system moving the goalposts. Catholic elementary school in Kitchener was completely removed its soccer posts, leaving parents wondering why. St. John's Catholic Elementary School shares a fence with Warren greenhouses on Strange Street. Soccer goalposts were installed facing the greenhouse around 2014. According to the greenhouse, the odd ball would come over the fence and cause damage. But when turf was recently installed, soccer balls started flying into the greenhouse daily. And according to parents of 2 students in the school last year, the students were told soccer could no longer be played at recess. And the kids were told they needed to be good neighbors to the greenhouse, and that's why they weren't allowed to play. But if you listen in the article, the owner of the greenhouse actually suggested trying to help, build a taller fence or netting or a lot of different situations. The school just said, no, we're going to take out the goalposts and soccer's not allowed anymore.
And then they said the soccer posts, here's the thing, is they tell the kids that. And then the official statement in an email says, the soccer posts at St. John's Catholic Elementary School were removed due to safety concerns following several incidents involving student injuries. I'm pretty sure it wasn't the kids going through the glass at the greenhouse. But they can't even get their story straight. They're telling the kids one version. The official email says another version. And I'm not a school planner. I've never designed or built any sort of thing like that.
You wouldn't put the goalposts with
but
glass
I feel like
behind it?
I feel like if there's a greenhouse that's been there for 65 years, you would maybe put the soccer field a little ways away or turn it so that when the kids are trying to kick things through the goalposts, it goes this way rather than right into the greenhouse. Like, it seems like the worst possible design you could have had. Like, why don't we just set the greenhouse up on top of the face-off circle and see what happens?
It feels like a little bit of a microcosm of our government. It's like we're going to stare at our feet, but we're not going to actually pick our head up.
Stupidest way possible. You had people coming in saying we can throw common sense solutions at it.
Don't want them.
Nope. We're going to lie to multiple people about why we're doing it.
We're going to remove the goalposts and no soccer for anyone.
And it's going to be the most expensive solution we can possibly think of.
Update on Jasper. Okay, I'm going to pull up here. This is so it says this is more proof that Minister Guilbeault's senior officials discussed canceling planned prescribed burns in Western Canada months before Jasper burned. These are newly obtained emails now reveal that this discussion was so alarming that the executive director of conservation replied begging Parks Canada to put forest management above politics. And I'm just going to scroll in here and read the yellow. It said, this is from an executive director for prairies and Northwest Territories region. Here's what it says. At what point do we make the organizational decision to cancel planned prescribed birds in Western Canada? Question mark. As more and more media articles raise public concern over drought conditions, public and political perception may become more important than actual prescription windows.
Call me a conspiracy theorist, but this stuff keeps piling up, and the Liberals purposely canceled prescribed burns around Jasper. And they like to say that everything's climate change.
Yes.
Until they offer a reasonable alternative to this suggestion, I'm going to go ahead and say that they wanted Jasper to burn so that it could be a martyr for their carbon tax.
Yeah, and I would just say, whether it was Jasper or wherever, they went, wildfire season is coming. It's coming. It's kind of like flu season. It's coming. You're gonna get it, and they're going to try and amplify it. So all the safety measures we take to ensure it doesn't get that bad, they're going to remove them so it can be as bad as humanly possible.
This is like COVID all over again. They refuse to socially distance Jasper from the potential wildfire. And then it caught Acorn COVID. All joking aside, like, it's the ball's in their court until they give a reasonable explanation as to why they did not do this for years on end, despite everybody in the industry telling them it needed to happen.
Yes, I'm joking aside. I'm agreeing with you. Yes,
yeah,
I'm agreeing 100% with you. It's right there. Public perception of lighting a fire is going to be bad. Let's not do it.
So I'm not saying this is my opinion forever. I'm saying until they give me another one, my stance is that they did this on purpose.
UCP gives Edmonton a hand job. All right. Some of it's coming into, now I understand what Tooz was laughing so hard about when he was making these headlines, folks. The city of Edmonton says next year's municipal election will cost taxpayers nearly $5 million more than expected. The increased cost comes as a result of the province's Bill 20 introduced by the United Conservative Party government last spring. A report from the Edmonton elections estimates hand counting ballots will cost about $2.6 million. That's in addition to the $1.8 million for permanent electors registration, $371,000 for special ballots, $630,000 to accommodate political parties, and $676,000 that is for additional support staff.
Okay, now just throwing this out there, $2.6 million is going to be the added cost. So you'll have the cost of running the election on its own, the cost of presumably the electronic counter, but the difference between that, the savings they'll have on the electronic counter and the added cost of counting by hand is going to come out to $2.6 million. Now, Sohi had 105,000 votes, and that was 45%. So you're looking at about 222,000 votes, give or take. And that's going to cost $2.6 million to count by hand. So you're going to have somebody in a room somewhere that every time they take a look at that ballot and says who it's for, that's $10. Oh, Sohi, $10. Oh, Mike Nickel, $10. Do you honestly think that that's a reasonable cost?
Thank you for bringing this up. I'm like, the numbers don't make sense. I'm like, I get it. There's going to be a cost to doing an election. Yeah. I get it. And it's not going to be $5. I get that too. But when you start doing the math, you're like, this once again is government doing the math, right? It isn't the people doing the math. It's the government going, oh yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, we just balloon it to $5 million.
But here's the thing is that might actually be an accurate cost in terms of how much extra money they throw at this. So the question is, one, are you guys scaremongering and your numbers are way the fuck out to lunch? Or two, are you just willing to throw as much money at this as possible in an effort to make the UCP look bad? Either way, you're dicks.
Block bill bad. Conservatives can't conserve. Amid new polling indications Canadian support boosting old age security benefits by 10% for seniors aged 65 to 74. A former Liberal finance minister and former Bank of Canada governor were warning government not to pursue that policy change. Twos. Well, let's see if I can pull it up here. Bingo. There we go. The block motion on increasing OAS payment has passed 181 to 143. CBC, NDP, Bloc, Green MPs voted in favor, along with 5 Liberal MPs to increase it.
Yes. The CPC, the Conservative Party, decided to do this, not because it made fiscally conservative sense, but because this is one of the 2 motions that the Bloc Québécois said that the Liberals had to support in order for them to continue to allow them to be in charge. And so the Liberals said, well, we're not doing this. And the Conservatives said, not does this make sense for our constituents, not is this for the betterment of our country, but this is going to help us in terms of pursuing an election. And in that case, we're going to support it. Which is exactly it's the wrong decision for the wrong reason, and 2 wrongs do not make a right in this situation. So
I went, so the Conservatives won election that bad. Okay. And then the next question, I was like, are they trying to work out a teamwork so when they're in power, the Bloc support them more? So they support, this playing politics.
They're not going to need the Bloc support after the election. They're trying to to them so that the Bloc is like, screw it, let's call an election. And they want an election so bad that they're willing to just piss away an extra $3 billion a year. This is estimated to cost. The fiscally conservative party, ladies and gentlemen. You need to talk to Pierre Poilievre about this.
Temporary foreign working tire.
Working. Yeah, because the actual company's Canadian Tire.
Yeah. All right. A Canadian Tire store in Toronto is under investigation by both provincial and federal authorities following allegations of mistreatment of financial exploitation of employees hired under Ottawa's temporary foreign worker program, according to a report. At least 13 employers resigned or were terminated in late 2023, alleging wage reductions, job duty changes, and threats of dismissal when they voiced their concerns about their working conditions, reported the Globe and Mail. Palian was promised a supervisory role, instead found himself working as a sales staff with his wages and hours reduced over time. Quoted, I was never introduced as a supervisor. I was told I would work in the hardware department of the store as a sales staff. And he said adding his hourly wage was reduced from $20 to $16.55 before he resigned in frustration. And the story went on and on and on about all these different people told one thing, then they get there and it's completely different.
Why does an established store with a permanent structure and probably a very long-term lease need temporary foreign workers? Right? Like, the idea behind the temporary foreign workers is that you presumably have some kind of a big uptick in whatever it is that you do. Some type of unexpected seasonality. And in order to cover that shortfall, you got to haul somebody on a plane and get them here from the Philippines. But this isn't like this is the same thing with the Lululemon headquarters. This isn't some temporary thing. This is an established company's permanent presence, as long as they maintain going concern. And for them to use temporary foreign workers for anything like this obviously has to be bending the rules. Like, there shouldn't be any temporary foreign workers working at a Tim Hortons unless it's some temporary pop-up store in a fucking parking lot. The system's broken.
Truth and reconciliation falls flat on both fronts. There's a whole bunch here. Okay, I'll try and rattle it off, and then I'll let Twos have his way. The pollsters found that 47% of Canadians disagree with the term settler as a descriptor. 30% didn't know about the term, leading the researchers to note it's reasonably safe to conclude that 30% simply don't understand the notion of settler and settler colonialism. And then went on. A different article read, a group of residential school survivors and their supporters are asking the federal government to reverse what they're calling a funding cut and come up with more money to help the unmarked graves of students who went to those institutions. The request comes on the same day Canada marks the 4th annual National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, which was established back in 2021. And then finally, twos, we have, and I'll pull it up here. This is in response to Sherry Wilson, PC candidate for Albert Riverview, and
it's in BC, or pardon me,
in Newfoundland, New Brunswick. No, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick,
same thing.
Anyways, and this is Blaine Higgs. He said when asked about PC candidate Sherry Wilson's now deleted post comparing the original policy to residential schools, leader Blair Higgs says it missed the mark and that there's no comparison to the pain and trauma caused by residential schools. So there's a lot.
Yes. So this is this long write-up, and it's a statement on Truth and Reconciliation Day, and it says a lot of reasonable things, recognizing the issues with the residential schools and talking about how it was at its root. And that's the thing. It's not saying it's the same thing as, it's saying it comes from the same mentality. And at its root, it was a bunch of progressives thinking that they knew better than the parents how to raise the kids, which I think is a pretty fair indictment of the trans stuff nowadays. And also, without actually having lived there, without being John Chrétien, who was the guy who masterminded this shit, I feel like that was the sentiment of the day, was that we can't have these savages raising their children, that we need to come in because we're the government and we're smarter than everybody else. And she basically just said that, we're experiencing the same kind of things, and we must never put our teachers in the position where they have to hide important parts of a child's development from their own parents.
But at no point does she say bring in the transgender issue or anything. She's actually pointing out that what went on in residential schools was bad, and what happened was government stepped in between a child and its parent.
Yep.
Right? Am I reading this letter wrong? Because everyone's like, oh, it's they're coming at it from like it's talking about what's going on now. It's just pointing out that government, like we can infer that what's happening today with government trying to get in between, or am I missing something too? Did I misread part of this?
I think that well, you're right in that she doesn't specifically say trans stuff, but I think it's
at no point does she say
that that's what she's talking about.
Well, sure, but
it's just this mentality of whether it's the indigenous schools, whether it's the trans stuff, or whatever the liberal, blue-haired, crazy people in academia come up with next week to try and divide parents and their kids.
All I'm saying is, at no point in her entire thing
does she say
anything about today. She doesn't say it. She doesn't. She's talking about 1831 and 1996. She goes through everything, and we infer she's making reference to today, but she doesn't say that the entire time. And then she gets told that it's off the mark. I'm like, that was a really well written letter. I don't know. Like, to me, I read it, I go, that actually is really well put together. And she's getting harassed. I'm like,
well, that's the problem. Is that when really well articulated statements from the right get put forth, there's automatically a huge backlash to say this person's crazy or unhinged or whatever else, because you can't actually debate them on the contents. And that's what happened there. David says, morning, folks, a bit late to the party here. And then Zane, you missed, we had an article just for you, man. He said, is it Friday already? I thought it was just yesterday. Happy mashing it up all day. And Kevin says Hicks is New Brunswick. So there
New Brunswick. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes. Okay. But yeah, and then there was a few other things. There was this guy I want to point out. He just seems to be all over my feed lately, but he says blocked every single piece of human trash who chose to respond with things like where are the bodies? If you caring about residential schools depends on corpses and you're going to demand the victims of systemic abuse dig up the graves of the victims to satisfy you, you are an irredeemable monster. That's not what anybody's saying. That's not at all. It's the classic bait and switch straw man argument that you see all the time. What people are saying is that if you're going to say there's hundreds of bodies buried at each one of those schools, you should probably have a little bit of proof. And then when you have like literally Indigenous groups calling for more funding to find more bodies, like, well, how many millions have you had already and you haven't found one yet? What are you spending the money on? I don't think that's unreasonable either. And it's not to say that we don't care about this stuff, or the amount that we care about it is directly proportional to how many graves are being actually found. What we're saying is that we need to have an honest conversation about what is and is not going on and what has and has not happened. Or at least that's my stance on it.
Trans pedo of the week. A child psychologist at the controversial Tavistock Hospital Trust remains free to practice despite being caught grooming a schoolboy for sex in a park. This is in England, correct, Tews? That's Tavistock, I'm pretty sure.
Yep.
Dr. Ross Kinnaid, or I think that's how you say that, was entrusted to treat youngsters' mental health as lead psychologist at the Tavistock and Portman NHS Foundation Trust, which became infamous for its gender clinic helping children to transitioning to a different sex. Kinnaid was snared by a group of self-styled pedophilia hunters in an online sting after he sent sexually explicit messages to youngsters, to a youngster who told him he was age 15. The 53-year-old psychologist met up with his would-be victim in Nando's restaurant and then arranged to meet at a local park to have sex. The pair were ambushed by members of the vigilante group posing as friends of the youngster who had been monitoring their interactions, a court heard.
Yeah, so the cops aren't busting. Like some of them, sure. Yeah. There's a few that cops bust here and there, but it seems like probably without any substantiation, I feel like probably half the pedos that get busted are by these stings that concerned parents set up. And that's worrying, because if you can just in your spare time basically set up a pedophile sting and catch them, first of all, that means there's a shit ton of them. And secondly, they're not even having to worry about being all that careful. The other important thing to note here is that this guy did not serve jail time and is still licensed as a child psychologist. And so he is still able to continue working alone with children.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. Like,
but God forbid he went to the Capitol and honked a horn for a week.
DoorDash dashes dreams. Food delivery giant DoorDash is immediately imposing new fees on orders in British Columbia. Sorry, BC. You're getting.
Did you say they're imposing new fees?
New fees.
What about them?
New fees on orders in BC.
How's you getting on there by?
Oh man, you got me. Okay, stop it.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I just called DoorDash the other day. Yeah, I get some Mary Browns. It's the best kind. I know it's for sure. And if anybody says I don't know it's for sure, I'll punch him right in the mouth. Are you gonna talk?
Are you gonna let me talk? Or are you just
gonna We're still live.
You gonna keep talking new fees here and like
please continue.
It's all good. It's good. All right. Is immediately imposing new fees on orders in BC to compensate from the BC government in June. Stop it. Imposing a new higher minimum wage structure for gig workers. Happy Friday. Hey, like, oh boy. As of September 3rd, gig workers in BC have been earning $20.88 per hour minimum wage while making deliveries. They're not paid when they're in between deliveries. Workers also newly get compensated 45 cents per kilometer for ride hauling and 35% for deliveries. These new regulations are significantly increasing our operating costs, DoorDash said today in a news release. All our orders placed through DoorDash in BC will include a new regulatory response fee ranging from 99 cents for restaurant delivery orders and up to $2.99 for all other delivery orders.
So, believe it or not, when you artificially increase the cost of something, it ends up making its way back to the consumers. Okay. And hiking the minimum amount that you need to pay people has financial ramifications. And Kelsey says, I'm here, better late than never. Kitty's in the room, twos. All right. Well, I'm sorry. Well, I guess we'll stop talking about newfies then.
Canada is dead last. What article are we talking about?
Oh, wait.
You skipped one.
Yeah, I did.
You skipped a bunch. Do you want to talk precious metals?
Yes, I do. No headline, but let's
Costco is going platinum. The wholesale retailer, which has gotten a massive boost from peddling gold bars, announced Wednesday it will be selling 1 ounce platinum bars on its website for $1,089. And although to Canadians watching this, if you're interested in that, as far as I know right now, I should look back on the text here because I was actually texting
Silver Gold Bull does sell platinum coins.
They do. And I think they're doing it on trial right now in Calgary and Edmonton. So
I know they do because I was talking to them.
No. They sell. If you go to Silver Gold Bull directly, they do this. In as far as Costco, they're trying it out with Costco in Canada, here in Alberta and in Calgary and Edmonton.
Okay, and so yeah, it's interesting that now the trust in government currency is so low.
It's brutal.
That it's a multi-million-dollar industry for Costco.
Correct.
Yeah. And meanwhile, you had this deleted tweet. I wanted to talk about it last week, but it got deleted. And so I didn't have it to call back on. But one of the government agencies in the States was telling people that they shouldn't be investing in gold. And I was thinking about the time that in Canada, we had our government telling us that interest rates are low and they're going to stay low for a long time. So you should borrow lots of money.
Yeah.
And when they said that, we said, look the fuck out. Interest rates are going to go through the roof. And look what happened. And so now when you got government agencies telling you to not do something, generally just assume you should do the opposite. You should all get vaccinated. Ha! Welcome to Myocarditiesville. Population U. Okay, the next one is trucking.
Oh, you don't have this one either, dude.
I think because the problem is that the show notes, there's so many different notes that I think because I have it as a 2-page view, and I think I missed one.
We don't want to hear the excuses.
The
we don't want the excuses, Tuesday. Be better. Be better. You know? Oh my goodness.
Man, is an idiot. Well, that's fine. That's fine. I've just decided what the fuck's going up next week.
Yeah. Okay. Anyways, let's get back to the show, shall we? Okay. Here it is. It says fine creeping black market. The underground economy now compromises. Wait, Leanne Taylor, pull up your socks, Twos. No kidding, Leanne. Right? Oh, like
blocked.
Yeah,
blocked.
The underground economy now comprises a third of the Canadian trucking industry. Think about that, folks. The Commons Finance Committee was told yesterday black market operators dodge billions in tax and flout labor laws, said the Canadian Trucking Alliance. Please help is what they were quoted. One of the schemes that was identified involved people operating unlicensed schools and delivering unauthorized training in students in Eastern Ontario and Quebec. As a result of the unlicensed operators, 6 commercial motor vehicles were seized by investigators. And then it went on to say further down, Gurpreet Singh and Gurvinder Singh will appear in court again on November 12th of this year. The order notes that Punjabi translators will be required as all witnesses for the judge and jury trial are Punjabi speaking. So if you're wondering where this leads to.
Well, I mean, first off, I've got a lot of time and appreciation for anybody who can dodge taxes, and especially to that level. So that's good. But at the same time, this is getting crazy. I know a guy who, like, literally yesterday was hauling a tandem around, and there was a couple East Indian dudes who came up and they were offering cash to all the trucks lined up to buy them out with a $5,000 bonus and say, this is our truck, work for us. Which is weird.
Well,
just imagine it was happening on like a construction site or on an oil lease. You just have some guy coming up being like, yeah, I'm going to buy this rig and you guys can work for us.
Well, I mean,
weird. That's weird.
A third of its black market. That's crazy, right? And what your story is you're getting first person account of it happening, or the stories. Yeah, right. Like,
okay, what's our next one? Oh yes, the BC election update.
Unveiling his energy platform Tuesday, BC Conservative leader John Roustad said his party would amend BC's Clean Energy Act to allow for nuclear power in the province. The party says it would also launch a review of all small modular reactors and seismic safety, with the goal of building the province's first nuclear plant by 2035. So if you're sitting in BC, they're looking at nuclear, but don't hold your breath. You're still a decade away from that.
Isn't it interesting that a clean energy law didn't allow for nuclear?
Yeah, but I go back to Dr. Patrick Moore when he was on the show. He was the former president of Greenpeace, a Canadian
founder of Greenpeace.
Thank you. And he said that they put nuclear energy in the same category as a nuclear bomb instead of nuclear medicine, right? And so they made the word taboo or whatever you want to say. And so, like, it doesn't shock me. This is the world we live in. So they're trying to fight for nuclear as a clean option. And then when you do the math and get into like the statistics and go down and down and down, like nuclear is a very, very viable option to us, but you're still 2035 is what they're talking. Get us elected. And by 2035, like, I mean, that's that's over a decade away.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and then again, you see government moving fast on things when they need to, when it's politically expedient for them. And yeah, if it gets built by 2035, okay, fair enough. Right. But that's still a lot of red tape too. Imagine spending 11 years. Like if you wanted to open up a store where you were going to sell, I don't know, microphones and headphones, and it took you 11 years to get the building built, you'd never do it. The amount of money that gets tied up in this stuff, because you've got the opportunity cost of that money too. If you got to tie up $1 billion for 11 years, odds are you could double it in that time if you're remotely savvy, and because it's $1 billion. Okay, well now basically that means it's a $2 billion cost to the project, right? Just unbelievable. Oh, the other thing is that John Roustad's going to get rid of plastic straws, plastic forks, and plastic bags, which is fucking beautiful. I love the fact that you've got a guy who's just saying, look, everybody hates this. It sucks. And nobody's buying milkshakes at A&W anymore. And no one can in McDonald's because they're always broken. And so, you know what? Let's just get rid of this stupid rule that nobody likes.
You know how sad it is when your kids are like, oh, they got plastic straws. I'm like, this is where we're at, right? But the kids even recognize it. They get this little stupid Kool-Aid pouch juice box things, whatever they are, and they have the little paper straw and they can't get it around. I'm like, this is the stupidest thing ever. The entire thing is plastic, but a paper straw is somehow saving the planet.
I was in High River, I don't know, a few weeks ago, and it was hot, so I stopped in at Dairy Queen and got a milkshake, and they had plastic straws. It's like, this is beautiful. This is great. This is glorious. I almost wanted to buy like 5 more milkshakes just so that I could have the plastic straws. Okay. All right. Next one is the Longshoreman.
You literally did.
I literally missed the whole freaking page. Whatever. I mean, I remember thinking when I finished,
I watched. I just want to rewind here for 20 seconds.
Really done quickly.
I want to remind everybody. At the start, I was like frustrated because Twos was like rating my girl and I'm like, let's just get through the walkthrough and everything. And he didn't clue in that he didn't write headlines. That is funny. Okay, the Longshoreman strike. Harold Daggett The union boss, who has vowed to cripple the U.S. economy if ports don't ban automation and raise dock workers' wages sharply, had a Bentley convertible parked outside his sprawling mansion in New Jersey this week. Exclusive photos showed Daggett, who fought back federal accusations of having mafia ties, became president of the International Longshoremen's Association in 2011, a job that comes with a salary of $728,000 annually. Too. He's like, whoo, and an additional $173,000 from the ILA local chapter. He described himself as a target of the mob, though a turncoat mafia member had testified that Daggett was a member of the Genovese crime family. So
yeah, and then that guy ended up dead in a trunk.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah, this guy, and it's funny because you listen to him talk, and he's got the exact accent you would expect from some shitty 80s movie about mafia bosses.
These people today don't know what a strike is.
Right.
When my men hit the streets, from Maine to Texas, every single port will lock down. You know what's going to happen? I'll tell you. First week, be all over the news every night, boom, boom. Second week, guys who sell cars can't sell cars because the cars ain't coming in off the ships. They get laid off. Third week, malls start closing down. They can't get the goods from China. They can't sell clothes. They can't do this. Everything in the United States comes on a ship.
This goes on, where he basically says, you bunch of mooks. It'd be a damn shame if something bad was to happen to the entire economy.
I watched this. I'm like, how fun would he have been to have on the mashup?
Yeah, I'd be like, I'm going to come through that screen and I'm going to break your neck. You know, I wouldn't want to have this guy on the show because I'd push back on him and say you sound like a fucking mobster. And then basically I just, the next time I went to go do a podcast, there'd be a dead fucking horse's head sitting on my chair.
He shows up, he's got big glasses and a beard and
yeah. And then, well, no, it wouldn't even be me anymore. It'd be some other random guy pretending to be me. And they'd be like, you'd say, well, what happened, Twos? You'd be like, the original Twos is sleeping with the fishes. I'm the new Twos. Like, this is fucked up. They want a 77% raise. These guys make about $200,000 a year. They get paid more than some pediatricians. So doctors get paid less than the longshoremen, and they're saying they want a 77% raise. I say automate the whole fucking thing. Fuck them. Fuck that guy and his fucking Bentley. Elon Musk was on Twitter saying that guy has a bigger house than I do, and Elon Musk is the richest motherfucker on the planet.
They've reached a tentative agreement now. Wage increase of about 62% over 6 years is what's been reported. So yeah, they did.
David says they agreed to 62% wage increase, but have postponed the strike to January 15th to once again cripple us 5 days before the new president, Trump, is sworn in. Well, I mean, it's interesting that you think he's going to win. I think you're vastly underestimating the amount of duffel bags that are going to be voting in this election. Okay.
Twos, what next one did you miss? Arson? You don't have arson in there?
Okay, well, probably I don't have arson. I don't think I have arson. Yeah, I don't have arson.
Okay, well, if you weren't paying attention, this is close to home. Another church burned down. This is a Kirk Lubimoff tweet. Church burned in Canada. It was the Anglican St. George Church in Loon Lake, Saskatchewan, built in 1938. That's 112 churches burned down or vandalized in the past couple of years, to absolute silence from the Justin Trudeau and most of our politicians. Enter Jamil Yavani, I don't know why I said it that way. Conservatives have introduced Bill C-411 to increase the penalty for the crime of arson against churches. And it reads the Act to Amend Criminal Code: arson, wildfires, and places of worship.
Yeah. Okay. So let's just go back to this burning church for half a second here. Sure. I just want to point this out. This is Loon Lake. I have caught a lot of fish in Makwa, in Steely Narrows. This is an area that I went to quite a bit growing up. There was another church that burned down probably about 5 or 6 miles away from the Two's original coming to Canada family homestead, right? And I'm sure that if you talk to anybody, they can say, oh yeah, there was a church in my hometown, or there was a church down the road from our farm, or whatever else. Everybody's like, these have become so prolific that everybody's got a story attached to them.
I got a text from a listener yesterday. It said Loon Lake, Saskatchewan may be going into lockdown due to crime. So many problems. And
that is true.
And asked if I would I asked if I'd reach out to the mayor there to get the full story, because it sounds like, well, I mean, if you're around that area, there's issues. I mean, there's issues in lots of different places, but it sounds like Loon Lake is awfully bad right now.
Mm-hmm. It is. Yeah. Anyway, the other thing though is that the arson rule, I'm sick and tired of us having special categories for what it is depending on who you're doing it to. Just arson is arson. It shouldn't be more or less illegal or have more or less penalty depending on who
you don't want to broke down by wildfire. It should just be like if you burn down something over.
Okay. Now here's the thing with wildfire though, is that you're not just setting a fire. Like, you're not just setting a fire in the bush. You're destroying millions of acres of habitat for animals. You're probably burning down a few homes, communities, things like that. So it's not as though you've got that one little case of arson for wildfire. You've got everything that burns down because you went there with a can of gas and some matches. Okay? What I'm saying is that let's have strong enough penalties for arson that nobody wants to do it, and let's actually catch the assholes who are doing this shit.
The Mashup effect. Why? Here's the headline. Why isn't the NDP triggering an election? They can't afford one. Gee, I feel like we just talked about that.
We did last week. So this is, to be fair, this is more the amazing Zoltan effect, because he's the guy who first brought this to prominence on Twitter. But that's another point, is that basically everything interesting in news and current events happens on Twitter first.
They even give him credit in there. I was
I thought that was great.
I thought it was great and wild all at the same time. I'm like, you've
literally got a national newspaper giving credit to a guy's Twitter thread.
Twitter thread. Yes. Like, think about that.
Yeah. But yeah, we talked about it, and then a week later they did.
All right. Caught. This is documents show CSIS warned feds 163 times that Chinese agents were active, contradicting Justin Trudeau's claim as late as 2023 that he was never told since it wasn't significant. And here's the video.
So this is Trudeau last year.
Information that was released on Monday through the media never made it to me, to my office, or to the minister at the time.
It made it to his office 163 times. You're busted, you lying sack of shit. All right. And then, we got some goofy news.
We got some goofy news. Okay. I'm just going to walk through a few different tweets here. Okay. I apologize to the people listening and not watching, because like this is some straight on wild stuff. This is it says this is some Roadrunner Looney Tunes shit here, and watch.
And so you got a guy crossing the street and a giant fucking missile falls out of the sky sideways and lands on him.
Boom.
And crushes him.
Oh,
well,
man,
you don't know. He might have been okay.
Yeah, okay.
This thing is the size of a car. No. I'm not done with this yet. Okay, so this is the bombing that's happening in the Middle East right now. So you have some government who spent hundreds of $millions developing their aerospace technology, millions of dollars producing a missile that they sailed hundreds of miles to land on somebody unexploded and just splat him against the pavement. It is the most inefficient use of dollars I could possibly imagine, and it's everything I would expect from government. What's the next one?
Okay. The next one, I'm going to let Twos read. Twos, because I thought it was the real Washington Redskins, and then I started thinking about that. I'm like, that doesn't actually make any sense.
Yeah, so some random guy on Twitter took over the Washington Redskins account because they abandoned it, and it makes for hilarity. And so somebody had said Washington's logo is ugly as fuck, and I'll die on that hill. And then this guy, who's now the Washington Redskins Twitter account, just some random shit poster, said, no, this is the hill you'll die on. And he tags this place called Faggot Hill in Ireland. And it was hilarious. It was funny enough that I felt like it had to be in there.
Quebec, and then the next is Quebec language watchdog orders cafe to make Instagram posts in French. So not allowed to post in English.
Yeah, so it's not even that you need to have it in your business. Now, your Instagram post has to be in fucking French in fucking Quebec.
A couple in Arkansas was arrested after they allegedly attempted
to sell where? Sorry?
In Arkansas, not Arkansas. Arkansas was arrested after they allegedly attempted to sell their 2-month-old baby for a 6-pack of beer and $1,000 cashier's check. They need to be taken to the train station. What needs to happen?
Mm-hmm.
An 81-year-old Montana man was sentenced Monday to 6 months in federal prison for illegally using tissue and testicles from large sheep hunted in Central Asia in the U.S. to create hybrid sheep for captive trophy hunting in Texas and Minnesota. We talked about this.
Yeah, we talked about this probably in like Mashup 7.
Yes.
This was one of the first things we talked about, was him just making this giant Frankenstein bighorn
I don't
sheep.
think it was that long ago. Honestly, it was probably like Mashup 70. We've been 127 twos. You think about it, that we talked about it, and it's wild to see that come full circle. One of the trends I assume we're going to see on this show as we continue on, because we talk about an awful lot. Of course, hockey season, as all hockey parents know, that
Kevin, Sean pronounces things would be the best mashup segment ever. Wouldn't you just love to see a supercut of him trying to say anti-disestablishmentarianism?
You guys are all dicks. All right. It's hockey season. And of course, with that comes, please be a good parent and not complete and utter insanity. But as you can see, a hockey game involving players 7 and 8 years old. So, came to a halt at Hamilton Arena after parents and at least one coach became involved in a wild brawl behind the boards. There you go. They look like they're in tip-top shape. And then finally, we have hot girls have become the right's new obsession. So
it's not a new obsession. We've been obsessed with hot girls for a long time.
And they point to this lovely lady right here, Sydney
Sweeney.
Yes, that this is what set it off when she hosted SNL. So there's your headlines of Goofy.
Yeah. And so they go into the whole thing. They talk for, that's probably the longest article you could ever imagine. And you're like, you could literally just make this point with a few awesome pictures and a few words, which are, the left says it's all about body positivity, and the right says we appreciate women who are attractive.
I'm pretty sure lots of people aren't listening to a word you say with that person on the screen. They're probably like, it is. Falling behind.
Remember that episode where we were looking for like a Maxim cover or something like that? And anyways, I was scrolling off. You were talking, and I'm scrolling on the side. I think it was Rebecca Romaine Stamos.
Yes.
And so I'm looking at like
that's a long time
Rebecca
ago.
Romaine Stamos while we're live, and I'm trying to find the right one. And you're talking to me. You're like, twos. Oh, sorry. What was that?
Twos zoned out because he was looking at Maxim covers for like 45 seconds. I'm like, where are you? He's like, I'm just trying to find something. I'm like, all right, fair enough. Okay. Here's employees in every Canadian province are poorer than employees in the poorest American state. There's the visual, and I can get this a little bigger, I suppose. But there you have it.
Yeah. So at the top, you've got Maryland. This is in Canadian dollars. Keep in mind, Maryland, apparently, I don't even know what they do in Maryland to make money, but it's by a decent little bit, the highest median employment earnings. And it doesn't list every single state. The 46th is Mississippi. I'm guessing it's going to be Louisiana and Alabama somewhere in the bottom as well. And then Number 51 on the list is Alberta. 52 is BC. Ontario. Literally every single Canadian province is doing worse than every single American one. So you think about all the rednecks living in the bush in the deep south who never get around to learning wearing shoes or brushing their teeth. They're doing better financially than the best people in Canada.
They would have. This thing is the thing about it is as soon as they change their earnings in American dollars over to Canadian dollars, they're going to hop ahead of us.
Yeah, well, there's a huge differential there. That's fair.
Right. So when you look at this, it's a touch misleading, right?
Yeah.
I'm not saying.
Zane says even Alberta ended up below our Kansas.
Oh, you're all having fun. Happy Friday. Yes, I'm just saying it's misleading because as soon as you take making American dollars and transfer it over to Canadian dollars, you're going to go right up the ladder, right? Like, I mean, you're going to get a huge bump.
Yeah, but that's all you're doing is pointing to the incredible devaluation our currency has undergone, right?
You're not, once again,
it's all valid points that all come together to say that we're getting screwed.
Yeah. Well, we've made that point over and over again, minus how I pronounce words to most of you. We've made that point now over and over again now for 127 mashups. And I mean, for the last hour and 20 minutes, that's what we've been talking about here. So,
all right.
Daniel Smith mostly annoys twos of the week. The Alberta government has decided not to allow grocers and corner stores to sell liquor after a review found that it would significantly harm small businesses. The new law makes it clear when, and then the next was the new law that makes it clear. We're talking about transitioning. Those under 18 can use puberty blockers and hormone therapies for the purpose of gender reassignment when the use is banned, and the importance of the approval of parents when it is allowed. Smith talked about paramount role of parents and the love they have for their kids. Parents will have to be told when teachers tackle gender identity, sexual orientation, and human sexuality, and if they want their child in the class when they have to opt out for instruction. You probably saw a whole bunch of stuff coming out from the UCP government over the last week. I like how twos can't say, actually, she's putting some things out there. It's mostly annoying. Twos, your thoughts on Daniel Smith and the UCP?
Well, there's a few things in here. The other one is that Alberta now has the lowest minimum wage in the country, which is interesting because Alberta also has the highest median employment earnings in the country. And so here's the thing is that the higher the minimum wage is, the higher the barrier for entry into the job market and the fewer skills that people can get earlier on in their careers, which set them up for future success. The real minimum wage is $0. And the more you regulate it, the worse it's going to be. And instead of saying, oh, Alberta is so far behind, and there's this whole article that never once, it goes on and on about how evil and mean it is that they're not increasing the median wage and how people deserve to have better incomes. Well, you get as much income as you can justify to an employer because it's a consensual contract. And nobody points out that the province with the lowest minimum wage also has the highest median income. Doesn't that seem strange? Okay. Now, I don't know where to go with this. Where is it? The liquor stores. Because here's the thing is on one hand, I don't think the government should say which stores are and aren't allowed to sell these things. If I want to set up a popsicle stand that also sells beer, that should be fine. But on the other hand, the grocery stores have a pretty easy time in terms of preferential regulation at a federal level. And so the question now becomes, do you, as a provincial level, try and do something to even that out? Because if you make it so that they can sell booze in grocery stores, they're totally going to decimate the small
market.
stores. Yeah, absolutely. But it's not a free market at that point. But it's definitely not a free market because you've already got them set up with preferential treatment from the federal government. So they're already competing on an uneven playing field. And so it's an interesting question where you say, okay, does a smaller government try and put their thumb on the scale to move it back to the middle? Or do they keep the thumb off entirely because they don't want to be interventionist? I wrestled with that. I don't really know where I stand. But the other thing is the chemtrails this week, Sean. See, Danielle Smith is trying to be Jason Kenney at times, trying to be everything to everybody. And in an effort to do that, she says a bunch of dumb shit about chemtrails the other day. And then this blows up because, now she's a crazy, unhinged conspiracy theorist. All you had to do is just say, look, there's no decent evidence for it. And that seeding clouds to reduce hail isn't what you guys are talking about. And that does happen. And if somebody has some compelling evidence, I'd love to hear it. But in the meantime, we got more important things to talk about. That's all she had to say. But instead, she doesn't want to. She's so worried about getting as many different random votes as possible that she doesn't want to alienate the super hardcore. And I'm sure there's a few people listening who are the same, right? But I mean, realize we're not going to agree on everything. And that's fair. But there's some people who are going to say, okay, well, yeah, I absolutely believe this. I don't. And there aren't a lot of people who do. And you have to realize that you're not going to be everything to everybody. And that's what Jason Kenney tried to do. And guess where the fuck he is now?
I do want to point out that Marco Van Hugenbos, me and him had talked about it a while back, how the age seemed to be coming down on the transgender stuff, right? Like consent and what they could do.
Yeah.
And here it is, 18, right? Like that's big news. That's really big news to us. And parental consent,
because they were throwing around 16 and 14 for a while.
Yes, they were. And so, like, I think we have to, I'll be the first to be as hard on this as, just finished having Dennis Modry on to talk about a whole bunch of things, Alberta. And when they come out, you got to still give credit where credit's due. You still need things to get through and put through legislation and on and on and on, right? But, I mean, my hat's off when things start to move the right way. No?
Mm-hmm. Yes. But the other important flip side to that is that, sure, sometimes in very weird situations, you need to put forth legislation. But quite often, the best thing you can do is not put forth legislation, like not increasing minimum wage laws. And that's where I was trying to give her some credit.
Fair enough. Debate indulges our vices. So I'm just gonna pull this up. Here you go. You had the VP debates, and Tim Walsh says, "I've become friends with school shooters." It was kind of it kind of blew up on him.
Yeah, he really shot himself in the school on that one. Yeah, there was a few other things that were interesting. The one thing I really liked was where JD Vance did the whole Jim Halpert look at the camera thing while
Tim Walsh said Finland doesn't have a lot of gun violence, even though they have high gun ownership rates. And then JD Vance's look.
Yeah. And so anyway, I think that JD Vance seemed a lot more comfortable in it than Waltz did. There was quite a few times where Waltz looked like an absolute deer in the headlights. Okay. All right. So for those of you mad at me about chemtrails, here's my olive branch.
Okay. Conspiracy theorists continue unbeaten streak. Edmonton City Council approved its new district policy and plans for 14 districts on Wednesday. The move advances the city plan, a vision of vibrant, urban, and climate resilient city where residents can easily access amenities and services close to home. Kim Petrin, the deputy city manager of urban planning and economy, said in a media release Wednesday afternoon. It's that, the funny thing about these, the conspiracy theorists continue to be unbeaten. The other thing is, no matter how much public backlash comes at any of these council meetings, they never seem to take any of it as like, oh, they're like, no, it's conspiracy. No, that's not what it is.
Yeah. So that's an article from CTV News that you were just reading. Now, if you were to look up CTV News 15-minute city conspiracy, you get these results from Google. How 15-minute cities turned into a conspiracy theory. 15-minute cities concept explained. Conspiracies debunked. Tim Caulfield talks 15-minute cities conspiracies. Tim Caulfield on 15-minute city conspiracy. This is all from CTV, the same place that just announced that Edmonton is turning into a 15-minute city. Now, to be clear, the big thing that people have, the big issue that people have is that they're supposed to restrict transit. Because that's the thing, is it's not so much that they're trying to set things up so that everything's within 15 minutes. It's that they don't want you to leave that area. And so Oxford, which is ground zero, the first 15-minute city concept being enacted after that French guy fucking proposed it in, I think, the late 90s. Oxford was the first one to try and run on it. And the idea being that there's cameras on the roads that mark the license plate when you leave, so that you're limited in the amount of times that you can actually go outside of your district, and that you get fined afterwards. And the idea being that it's a slippery slope where at what point does it make it prohibitively expensive for you to take a car, which is what's required to travel any significant distance. But it's a hell of a lot easier to just call it a conspiracy theory than to have an honest conversation about it, even if it becomes an actual thing later on.
Happy news, folks. Here we go. Here's the first one. It says, in central Saskatchewan, we're now seeing single whooping crane migratory flocks numbering 60-plus individuals. They're finally gathering in size like in most other crane species. Yesterday, we saw 100 staging in fields.
Now, I'd say that's probably more than 100. That looks like quite a few more than 100 whoopers. And I think that my whole time ever, the most whooping cranes I've ever seen in one place was maybe a few more than the little bit in the field at the bottom.
At the bottom, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so they're starting to come back.
The next is Riley Gaines. She said, let's go. University of Wyoming is the third school to forfeit their match against SJSU because they have a man on their women's team. This is the way. Do not comply. Major kudos to Wyoming's volleyball. And there you go. So that's a she's been talking an awful lot about that. You're starting to see some traction there. You have Greg Abbott.
Stop for a sec.
Okay.
The second tweet in that, Utah State University becomes the fourth school to forfeit the match against SJSU due to a man playing on the women's volleyball team. The only way this stops, folks, is if none of the women are going to compete against men dressed as women. That's the only way this stuff stops. And so good on them for taking a short-term loss to even the playing field.
And then next is Greg Abbott. Says, celebrated a milestone for the Texas Stock Exchange this morning. Business is booming so much in Texas that they now have their own exchange-traded fund. So that's Texas Stock Exchange will ensure more businesses can succeed in their great state. It's a conglomerate of Texas businesses.
Yeah. They were getting fed up with the amount of red tape and regulatory crap involved with registering with the New York. And they said, screw it. We don't want to be part of your club. It's too expensive. We're just going to make our own club. Good for them.
And finally, EA Sports kept Johnny Gaudreau in NHL 2025, as they should. That's a nice tip of the cap.
Yes, indeed.
Now, community notes. I want to remind everyone of what we talked off the start. We got BC election Saturday, October 19th. Sask election Monday, October 28th. We have the UCP AGM. We got a hospitality room November 1st, and we'll be there the 1st and 2nd. And then we're U.S. live election coverage Tuesday, November 5th. So make sure to pay attention. We'll be live on X, Rumble, YouTube, Facebook, and then of course I don't know what the heck I'll do for the podcasting folks. If you're listening right now, I would just say it's going to be live on all those channels. We'll see what we can do about putting it on the podcast after, depending on how long it goes. And then Michelle has posted community events, Riders on the Road game in Lampman, Saskatchewan, October 5th at 4 p.m. And then Oktoberfest tomorrow in Maidstone, Johnner Brothers Entertainment Day of Destruction 2.0 tomorrow at Dundurn. That's
the Johnner Brothers Entertainment Day of Destruction 2.0. That's what a hell of a name.
It should have read October tomorrow. Mainstone Joner Brothers are the entertainment.
Them Joner Brothers. They don't fuck around.
Damn it! Who put the question mark on the teleprompter? Oh man. Okay. Mashup 127 in the books, folks. I don't know. We're at an hour and 34. I was like,
all right. Well, I mean, it would have been faster if you could have got Arkansas right the first time.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's all my fault today, folks. Not Tuesdays. Yeah.
And
I'm
then
just Vance Crow. Get out of here. Get out of here. Get.
This is great.
You know, Tues forgets half the headlines, and somehow he's still getting complimented.
Shout out to Vance because
I'm going to hire the dock union worker to come go on strike for me and get rid of all this.
You're going to hire him to go on strike for you? That sounds like a government solution.
It does.
Vance is the guy who put me onto the knowledge that the Texas Stock Exchange was forthcoming. He's the first person I heard talking about it. So thanks for that, man.
All right. Twos, we're going to get the heck out of here. To all you wonderful people, we'll see you again next Friday, 128. Until then, folks.
All right. Thanks, buddy. Bye, everyone.